Hi everyone, greetings. This is a follow-up video to the 16 steps of separation and divorce. There were some insights that I did not add that came to mind after I uploaded the first video. And one of the things is, for those that identify as Christians, I find that divorce is complicated and it's very confusing because the narrative that people give within the church is if the divorce wasn't, if there was no infidelity, if there was no violence, then you really have no reason to get a divorce. There's no justification for it. My separation divorce, throughout my entire marriage, there was zero violence, zero violence, and there was zero cheating. There was no infidelity. And so I had a lack of support, a perceived lack of support, due to that not being the reasons why we parted ways as far as the marriage. And then when I looked up material online that was encouraging, I could not find any really that reflected my experience. I don't identify with organized religion. However, I do like inspirational content, and I couldn't find inspirational content based off of my experience. And so it further reinforced how alone I felt. And I think that from my research, my own just devotions and thinking about things, marriage in the Christian church has become an idol. It's been placed on a pedestal that's so high that it goes against what's rational, at times. For example, a myth belief system I've heard is marriage is holy. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe what makes a marriage holy is two people that are holy, two people that are righteous. That's what makes a marriage holy, sanctified, all the stuff all the rhetoric that people will say. And another myth about marriage is that God hates divorce. And the scriptures that talk about divorce are very grossly manipulated, the way it's been interpreted, and it has encouraged a lot of people to stay in marriages that they were actually called to leave because they didn't understand the context of the scriptures, and they didn't have a personal enough relationship with their creator, with their God, to be able to have a proper assessment of their experience. And so, there's Christianity, and then there's the Most High, and there's man's laws, and then there's heavenly laws. And I find that oftentimes within Christianity, and I know there's other religions, right, that speak in similar ways, but my lens comes from my background in Christianity. And so I have just observed that there's a muddying, there's a blending of man's, earth's doctrine and belief systems and heaven's. And so the two get combined and used interchangeably when they can't. And that's where so much confusion comes in with people, because people are thinking, gosh, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense. But I was told that this is what God wants. And so people are doing things in the name of God that have nothing to do with God. I'm sharing this because this adds to the weight of grief when it comes to letting go of a marriage, because if you're of the belief system that you're being disobedient and you're going against what God wants, and then you're going to deal with false guilt. Because what if what you're supposed to do is to leave? What if in getting married it was an act of defiance spiritually? Those things do happen. So as far as my marriage, I don't regret my decision to get married. I have learned so much from that experience. It was a very unique experience. I greatly appreciate the love that my former spouse gave me, and I'm grateful. And I learned a lot through that. And something that I intended to be a lifetime ended up turning into a seasons upon seasons, an extended season. And I have accepted it. I am okay with it, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the lessons. That's something I say every day. I'm grateful for every lesson that I have received, even if it has been in pain. Nothing is wasted. I take everything and I choose to grow from it. So for those of you that are in the Christian community and the religious community, and you're looking for resources when it comes to support for non-abusive marriages, where there's no cheating and just no toxicity, there are limited resources when it comes to that. So that's why it's going to be very important that you are resolute on your decision, and that you are not making a decision based off of other people's opinions, because based off of the majority's opinion in religious environments and institutions like that, you are going to be perceived as wrong. You're going to be perceived as disobedient. You're going to be perceived as out of order, a Jezebel, all the different types of things that people will say when they don't know what they're talking about. It sounds good, right? It sounds like very intentional speak, but it's not when you get into the weeds of it. So health and wellness, spirituality is doing what works for your system, doing what works for you. What works for you is going to be different from what works for someone else. Your personal revelation is going to be different when you share it with someone else. It may not land on them as revelation. It could just be information, just random stuff that they'll just gather or do something with or do nothing with. And that's okay. But I just, I mentioned this in a previous video where I talked about freeforming, just how you're going to have to go against the culture. And the traditional culture in America, when it comes to, because Christianity is such a foundation in the Western world, for reasons that I believe are beyond spiritual. There's political and social agendas attached to it, but that's for another conversation that I'm not going to have. But it's an institution that dictates a lot of things. Even people who don't even identify with any form of religion, sometimes when you'll speak with them, you can still hear the influence, because it's so ingrained into American, the American fabric, the institution of Christianity. So you're going to have to go against many aspects of that culture if you're going through a separation divorce that doesn't reflect what the church deems as a justifiable reason to get a divorce. So by man's standard, sure, it may not be justified, but by heaven's standard, it is justified and it is okay. And you can do what you need to do. I can't determine that for you. Only you can. You have to do what brings you closer to health and wellness and peace and righteousness and wholeness. That's it. Whatever that looks like for you. I'm just sharing my journey with you as to provide encouragement, because I know I looked for encouragement, in these platforms, and it was difficult finding it. And so I'm just wanting to pay it forward, because I appreciate those who have been vulnerable in, on their YouTube channels and with their online information, and who've opened themselves up to public scrutiny. You have such a high respect for me. I appreciate all of you, those who have spent countless hours doing research and just really working to help enlighten a community globally. I appreciate you. And, if you haven't really had anyone tell you thank you, I'm saying thank you. Thank you. Truly, thank you so much. And so I just wanted to add that additional video for those that are going through the separation and divorce, to know that there are going to be times that you feel like you are alone, but you're not alone, but it may feel that way. There are other people who are going through similar experiences. And don't let anyone talk you out of your healing and what you need to do for yourself. And I do believe that there are times that this journey will be alone, but you don't have to walk in total isolation. I do believe in seeking wise counsel. So yes, reach out to people. Just make sure the people you reach out to for support are healthy representations within your community. Don't seek support from people that you know are not well. They're going to give you feedback from a place that is unwell. So, don't seek feedback about your marriage and the separation, the process, from people who are, bitter, because they're going to give you insights that are soaked in bitterness. It's going to be corrupted, insight. And if you don't have the wisdom to discern that, then you're going to allow those projections onto you, and it will dictate the way you move and cause you to move in ways that are dysfunctional, because that feedback was not coming from a place it wasn't pure, because it was mixed with bitterness. So, and then people who are happily married, also be careful of that, because again, they're going to be a huge proponent for marriage, because they're like, marriage is great, marriage works. And I actually believe that marriage is fantastic. Even though I'm divorced, I believe in being married. I believe in having long-term relationships where you have, life partners, where you make a commitment and you have a ceremony, you do all those things that are beautiful. I still believe in that. That didn't deter me from that at all, my personal experience. But, those individuals had a very positive current, experience with marriage. And so they're going to want to give you feedback from that place. But that feedback may not be in alignment with where you're at in that moment. So it's just using wisdom to know how to take the meat and spit out the bone. Well, I'm vegetarian now, so maybe not actual meat, but how to take the fruit and spit out the seeds. So just use wisdom. There's so much information online, and now I'm just kind of on a tangent and I'm pontificating, but there's so much information online that it's just a wealth of knowledge. But when you don't have a core sense of self, that wealth of knowledge can turn into confusion, because you don't know where to pick from. You don't know how much to pick from, whether to pick at all. So during your journey of separation, because it can feel like a loss of self, because there is a loss of, to some degree, of an identity, because it's now shifting, it's evolving, to really get reacquainted, or maybe you were never acquainted with who you are. What are your likes and dislikes? Just even basic stuff, like, I like this particular type of food. I like it cooked a particular type of way. I like this design aesthetic. Find the names of the design aesthetic. Be able to kind of come up with your own elevator version of who are you when you share, your life with people. I think that's very important. Many people I've worked with don't have a strong sense of self, of knowing self. They just kind of do things on autopilot. And it does take very intentional parenting to make sure that your child grows up with a strong sense of self that they can identify and they can articulate to others. And so even this journey of making these videos, it's been helpful for me and cathartic, because I've been able to put language to things that I've kind of just had in my head. And so that's been encouraging, just, with that, knowing like, okay, I have a very strong procedure when it came to my process, and I didn't even realize that I had that many procedures. I just was doing it. And so making these videos has actually been helpful in letting me see my progress as a person, as a woman. So thank y'all, everyone that's watching and subscribing, for tuning in. And I just hope y'all continue to have the life that you want. And the life you want is by your choices. So see you later.